There's an odd relationship between people and pixels. In the contemporary era, human beings have come to rely more and more on virtual means of communication. This also means that a sizable portion of the population, especially in Western nations like America, have shifted to largely virtual means of entertainment as well. Cue video games.
With no rules to follow, this adventure, it's up to you.
According to the Entertainment Software Association in their 2014 report, Essential Facts About the Computer and Video Gaming Industry, 59% of Americans regularly play video games, and of those gamers, 44% of them think that their video games offer more entertainment for their money than DVDs, music, or going out to the movies. Of the games played most, 24% of them fall into the genres of action, sports, strategy, or role-playing, and 11% are persistent multiplayer universes. And somewhere between those categories is a genre of game that is referred to affectionately as the sandbox. The name comes from the popular playground installation because, like playing around in real sand, these games allow you to manipulate the environment around you at will. Put simply, the point of a sandbox game is to give you the freedom and the ability to engage with the designed world around you. Popular examples of sandbox games include, but are not limited to, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, Infamous, Elder Scrolls, Assassin's Creed, Sims, Burnout Paradise, and, of course, Minecraft. Minecraft was officially released on the 18th of November 2011, but it had been in a playable beta stage for 2 years prior to that. The game was designed by Marcus Persson, who had recently left his job at an unnamed but well-established game developer. He's also known by his in-game name, Notch. Minecraft itself is very simple and easy to get the hang of. You have all the resources of a procedurally generated 3D world at your disposal to do with what you will. The players offered 4 game modes within which to practice these freedoms. The primary mode is Survival, where players are required to, survive in the environment, while keeping themselves from starving to death or being killed by the randomly spawning monsters called mobs. There is another version of Survival called Hardcore mode, where the world is amped up to the highest degree of difficulty, and the player is not allowed to come back to life when they die. Instead, they are forced to delete their saved file and start all over again. In each mode after this one, fewer and fewer restrictions are placed on the player. Like in Creative mode, players have no health or hunger, they have the ability to fly, and they have unlimited resources. And in Spectator mode, players are essentially ghosts, able to travel through blocks and view, but not interact with almost everything in the game. Wait, not interact with? Well, yeah. While you can be omnipresent in Spectator mode, much of your power has been drained from you, so the game limitations aren't taken away, they're really just different. That makes a lot of sense, considering various sandbox games continue to impose restrictions at some stages of the game environment. In truth, sandbox video games offer no more opportunity to enact free will and volition than the physical world does. It's just that limitations are imposed in different ways and for different reasons. Another word for this free will and volition is agency. Literary theorists Jeffrey Nealon and Susan Giroux work a great deal with that concept, as well as issues of culture, in their book The Theory Toolbox. Of agency, they are keen to mention that it is obviously crucial in determining who you are, but it just as obviously has its limits. For our purposes, agency will be defined specifically as the ability to make decisions or perform actions that do not engage as expected with the particular context, since Nealon and Giroux go on to mention that our agency is both constrained and enabled by the context in which we find ourselves. We'll be hearing even more from them later, but for now the question is, where is agency evident in Minecraft, and how does that compare to the real world?
Well, in a lot of ways, Minecraft is like real life, like kind of a simulation, but there's a lot of ways that you can do things your own way. So there's a lot of freedom with things like that. Like if I want to jump off a cliff into a big river, I can, because it's Minecraft.
We mentioned the 3 other games in Minecraft, but our focus is going to stay on the primary mode, that being Survival. In their article, Techipedia points out that one of the reasons sandbox games impose restrictions to the environment is because of the game's design limitations. Just like in the real world, Minecraft is designed so that the ground is solid and can be walked on. There are also cycles of day and night, and even an atmosphere that imposes gravity. In the physical world, these limitations exist as a result of the physical and molecular properties of the things around us. In Minecraft, these limitations are coded into the game through modeling and through a physics engine. So where is there room for agency in either of these places? Well, in the real world, you can counter the natural way of things by making use of gravity in a way that exploits the way in which it functions, just for the thrill of it. That's called skydiving. In Minecraft, the gravity system will affect certain materials when you place them down. Things like sand, gravel, water, and even lava will slope in response to gravity. As a bonus, there are much fewer penalties for playing around with a bucket of lava or for dropping an anvil on someone's head in Minecraft than there is in real life. Which brings us to our next point. Peer-to-peer is a term for transfers of data made directly between computers without the need for a separate server to facilitate the exchange. A physical representation of this would be two people having a conversation. In Minecraft, you can have parallel interactions, either through a local access network between players who are physically present in the same location, or through Minecraft's online multiplayer servers, where you can choose whichever world best suits your playstyle and engage with players thousands of miles away.
You're able to play with whoever you want. It's not like you're only allowed to play with certain people. And then like you're allowed to play whatever games you want with those certain people.
These interactions lend themselves to other interesting comparisons. In the real world, you have no idea when you may or may not be being watched. Granted, there are certain spaces where you can suspect that you're under surveillance, but you'll never know for sure. The game isn't much different. In Minecraft, you're instantly made aware of when a player joins your online world, and you can see a floating name tag in the world as well. So, once again, you're forewarned about situations in which you could be being watched. And just like in the physical world, you won't be able to pinpoint that player's location until they're completely visible to you. Literary critic Michel Foucault might bridge the gap between these two scenarios with this theory of the discipline system, something he outlines in his book Discipline and Punish. Discipline is what Foucault calls a system of societal peer pressure that keeps members of society following along with sanctioned and expected behaviors out of fear of standing out from the crowd in a negative way. In this way, cultures are kept following the proper narrative. Jeffrey Nealon and Susan Giroux call this narrative, this common-sense understanding of how to live, a culture's ideology. In their chapter on ideology, Nealon and Giroux say that all cultural acts take place in some relation to ideology, so it's no surprise that ideology is present inside of Minecraft, let alone real person-to-person interactions. In the physical world, American ideology expects a passerby to issue simple, superficial, and polite small talk with a stranger they encounter on the street or in the office. Or, at the very least, they should pass by with no reaction at all. Enacting agency by, say, exploiting someone's good-natured, "Hi, how are you?" and continuing on to tell them about your entire day could be met with scornful looks in compliance with the social discipline principle. Or it could be met with another act of agency, when the other person continues to have a genuine conversation with you. But in Minecraft, the ideological limitations are much different. Again, since the game is a sandbox, you're given the opportunity to respond to the world as you like. That includes other players. So you may choose to attack them and take their things, or you may choose to cooperate with them to build a new town. While the choice may be yours, it means that enacting agency is that much more difficult to do, because both of the obvious options, congeniality and brutality, are in compliance with the expectation the game has that you'll play the way that you want to and carve out your own narrative. And while we're still thinking about narratives, let's thicken the plot just a little bit more.
Minecraft is actually a good example of that because there isn't really a story. There is a beginning and an end, but how you get to the end is completely up to you. There's so much fluff that you can add and so much in between that you could never get to the end and still play the game and feel fulfilled by the game and all that stuff. So the story in this aspect, I think, is sort of just a way to complete it, a way to feel a sense of closure, because if there wasn't that sense of closure, then you could play forever with nothing.
We've already alluded to the fact that ideology acts as the story embedded into a culture that acts as the common agreement on how to live and behave. Nealon and Jerome mention in their chapter Culture that these cultural norms and ideologies by which something becomes meaningful make certain identities and meanings possible and probable, while making other meanings or identities impossible or improbable. So ideology really exists to produce more of its own ideology, while ruling out other ones. It perpetually writes its own stories, so to speak. Now, how does this translate to the Minecraft and the physical world? Following the traditional American cultural ideology, the story mode, so to speak, essentially means being white and a male, going to school for 16 years and having 2.5 children. Well, in modern times that's often pushed against by people who don't necessarily want that life. So they'll exploit this system and enact their agency by being part of it until it stops benefiting their goals and their visions. They may get their high school diploma and then quit the story mode, have a sex change operation, and then go to clown school and ultimately become ringmaster at the circus. Hypothetically, of course. Since Minecraft has no story, since your only real objective is to keep playing the game to your heart's content in any manner you choose, trying to subvert the system for personal satisfaction is tougher to do. Exploiting the game for more utility is near on impossible, because this clever little sandbox has already given you the freedom to have so much fun. Minecraft-based agency in narrative is not completely out of the question, though. After a lot of community support and, well, badgering, Notch, the game's creator, implemented an achievement system into the game, and also a final boss into Minecraft survival mode. It's called the Ender Dragon, and it only spawns naturally in a special region that is appropriately called the End, and that region can only be accessed through a portal. However, the Minecraft community leaning on Notch to create a new, final mob really isn't enacting agency within Minecraft, but it is an exploit of the nature of the game developer/game player relationship in the physical world. So really, in order to resist Minecraft's narrative, players had to completely change context. So let's wrap things up. Like we mentioned earlier, Minecraft doesn't offer any more opportunities to enact agency than the real world does. Both Minecraft and the physical plane have very stringent physical limitations, so that one is pretty much a draw. When it comes to peer-to-peer interactions, Minecraft wins because there's far less ideological significance in your decision-making process, since the penalty for behaving however you like is, well, negligible at best. While you may have to deal with the repercussions of attacking another player, you also have the option to respawn if you die, or you can change worlds to escape completely. And finally, the real world wins when it comes to exploiting the narrative, because Minecraft really didn't have a narrative to begin with, and because in order to change Minecraft's story, history has shown us you have to completely change context as well. The bottom line is this: while you can act within the context of Minecraft in whatever way you like, acts of agency are dependent on or based off of parallel acts in the real world. Eventually, the players need to stand up from the screen. Eventually, you need to realize that your sandbox is built on much firmer ground. But that isn't to say that you can't still enjoy building your castle. Thanks for watching, and until next time, farewell.